Welcome back to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel. My name is Matthew, and thank you for being here for another episode of Beyond the Lines. It's the show where we get an opposition supporters' view when it comes to previewing Newcastle's next game. And on Sunday at 2 o'clock, it's the Matthew Debuchy derby. It's the Sol Campbell Super Sunday Spectacular as Newcastle take on Arsenal at St James's Park. And now today I am joined by not one, but two massive Arsenal fans. First and foremost, it's the brilliant, it's the beautiful, it's Koben, ladies and gentlemen. How are you doing, sir? I
am loving life. How are you doing?
I'm not too bad. Maybe not much loving life, but close. I am liking life. It's good. We're here. Okay. It's all great. But last but not least, it's just as brilliant and just as beautiful. It's Max, ladies and gentlemen. How are you? All right?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. You caught me a day before trim day, which is the only problem. But,
mate, I looked a bit crazy. I've only just had mine. It doesn't look fresh, but whatever. It is what it is. It's the times we're living in. But we're here to talk about the Newcastle Arsenal game. But gentlemen, before we get on to that, before we get on to Sunday, before we get on to Arsenal's season so far, I just want to bring to your attention, this is the first time that we've had two supporters on this podcast. And the last time Newcastle played Arsenal, we conceded 3 goals. Now, 2 times 3 equals 6, and 6 Premier League teams tried to join the European Super League, and one of them was Arsenal. Illuminati confirmed. Or tedious link to my first question confirmed. I'll come to you first, Max, just touching on this, mate. First Arsenal fan I've spoken to in a long time. What were your feelings going forward, hearing first the news that this could be happening, and then hearing Arsenal or one particular person, Arsenal's owner, his intentions to join this ESL?
Oh God, where to begin? I think I might have spoke to Koben when it all came through on the Sunday. It was, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And then it was just all getting leaked. It was almost like the COVID announcements, wasn't it? You hear it from media first off, and it was like a few bits in the group chats were going around, and I thought, oh, this can't be happening. Like, it just can't be happening. Like, how can you change what has been domestic football for so long? And then just that tone deaf message which got chucked onto Arsenal's Twitter probably about 12:30, I think it was Sunday night, Monday morning.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, just the world fell apart after that. Like, it was so tone deaf, wasn't it? It was like, I think all of the top 6 club had done the same statement, with Joel Glazer being quoted in it along with Florentino Perez, and you just thought like this can't be happening. To be fair, as ridiculous as it was, I just could not see it. I could not see it happening. It was just there was too much upheaval to it, and it was almost like, even though it was the top 6 against everybody else, I feel like fans of everybody were unanimous in how they thought about it, and it was never really going to work.
I mean, Koben, were you as confident as Max in the fact that you didn't think it was going to go ahead, and were you just as, had that feeling of disgrace as all of us did? I mean, I know my club wasn't involved, but having a club involved, what did that feel like?
Yeah, well, I mean, my first reaction actually was just incredulity. Like, I just didn't think it would happen. And then you hear more news coming down the pipeline. So you hear that all of the leaders of the clubs have left the ECA. You hear that, all of these meetings have been going on for a while. You hear that they've secured a £5 billion loan. And all of this means that this has been in the pipeline for months, right?
Yeah.
It's not an announcement that's just been cooked up randomly the day or the week or, the fortnight before it's come out. So it has been in the works for a while. And my next thought is, this is a massive power grab, because you have all of this talk about the American model. You have kind of American football and basketball. They operate in this model where it's a closed league. There's not promotion. There's not relegation. There's not sufficient competition. And ultimately, your royalty, once you own one of these clubs, is guaranteed revenues every single year. And it made me think a lot of the time, first and foremost, and cynically as an Arsenal fan, now that, and I didn't believe it was going to happen, now that it's not going to happen, is this going to be the end of Kroenke at Arsenal? Was this his whole end game in the first place? And now that it hasn't gone through, are we going to be optimistic about potentially Kroenke just washing his hands of the whole affair and, just cutting his losses and leaving? So I was kind of optimistic in that sense. But of course, just like every other fan of every team, in my experience, even the ones who were in the Super League, I thought it was a disgrace. I think the players thought it was a disgrace. I think the staff thought it was a disgrace. And, I think they knew that because they didn't speak to their players. They didn't speak to their staff. They didn't speak to their fans. So I think, this line that you're trotting out about how you had to go into it because it'd be better if you were in it rather than not in it. It's just not good enough. I don't think anyone believes that. And I think any punishment that's dished out is justified, you know?
Yeah,
Even if it means taking them out of the Champions League for next year, or, you know, however punitive it is, points, deductions, anything.
Well, Koben, you've read my mind there, because my next question was going to be, you know, thankfully it's gone. It's for now. And who's to say that this new Champions League format, I'm talking about things that Newcastle aren't involved in, which is crazy, but, you know, the Champions League, this new format, that's sort of a veiled Super League.
The takeover ever happens, maybe you will be.
Maybe, fingers crossed. But the less said about that, the better. I think that's been talked about far too much. But, you know, you've just mentioned the word punishments there. And, you know, we've talked, and you had like Sir Graham Souness saying, you know, you can't do points deductions, you can't do pulling them out of competitions because that punishes the fans. Now, I get that. I do understand it's through the greed and the gluttony of these owners, but it's through the greed and gluttony of owners that clubs go into administration and the football team is punished. So do you think that it's A, going to happen, but B, worthy of something like a points deduction or a banning from a competition? I'll come to you first, Max.
Well, I mean, it all just seems to have passed, came and gone so quickly.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I do think, like, the clubs are well within their. I do think it's well within their rights to, you know, the other Premier League clubs to want those sanctions of the Big Six. You know, the fact that you know, these Zoom calls or whatever that everyone likes to be talking about it could have been going along for, as Koben says, like the best part of a year. Like, this has been going on in the background for some time, and then for them to just all kind of say, "Oh, no thanks, no more of the Premier League for us, thanks," and just want to leave. It's not acceptable. So yeah, I get that it is punishing the fans, but you can completely understand the feeling of you know, wanting the top six to suffer on the hands of the owners.
Punishing the players.
You look at
weren't consulted on it, and they're getting punished. You know, if I'm the, you know, the captain of a club, I've given my all for the badge every single week, week in, week out. You know, someone like Henderson, you know, someone who everyone can see how much he loves his club, how much he leaves it all in the field. And he was a leader of the speaking out for the fans and for the players against it. So if you dock him 20 points, you know, how is that really teaching FSG a lesson? That's the reason why I think it's quite interesting when you talk about it at the legislative level. Like, you know, when you talk about Boris Johnson, the government getting involved, and them talking about trying to change the ownership models or trying to dilute the ownership that some of these owners have over the club and giving fans some representation. I think that's the best way to go about it. The problem is we already signed the deal with the devil when we let all of these people invest billions of pounds, right?
Yeah, you're right.
If I invest 1.5 billion pounds into Chelsea over the last 5 years, like Roman Abramovich, and then you turn around and tell me I have to divest myself of 20% of my share, well, you know, how is that fair? How is that justified? You took the money when I was going to build the big stadium in Chelsea and spend tens and hundreds of millions of pounds redeveloping the stadium and the surrounding area. You were willing to take the money, right? Now, it didn't come to pass, and, you know, he ended up losing his passport and all of that. But we're willing to take it when they're giving the money. And then when we don't like something, we're also kind of, you know, we're willing to be insular and say, oh, you don't understand football. You know, you don't get what we're about. You don't care about the fans. And so I kind of feel like we have to draw a line at this point and say, we're not willing to just, you know, take it from all of these people with the billions of pounds. We do have standards as an organization, as a football, you know, as a kind of set of fans, as an organization of the Premier League, but also as the individual clubs. We're not going to just say, okay, if you have enough money, you can do whatever you want. You know, we need to draw red lines and say, we're protecting the culture of football, we're protecting the fans, we're protecting the clubs, and we're protecting, you know, what it is that we define as the Premier League. And that's the reason why I think the legislative level is good, because if we just say that, you know, for example, the 50+1 rule in Germany, you know, that's at the legislative level, and it means that no club in Germany was ever going to come out and back the Super League, because they have to answer to their fans.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't feel like we've got any real leg to stand on telling someone like Kroenke or telling FSG that they shouldn't do this, apart from just saying, well, you know, as football fans, you're taking the piss. But from a business level, you know, as soon as we let them put their money in, we kind of have to accept that they're going to do that.
Yeah, it's certainly a monster. It's certainly a monster the Premier League created. I totally agree, and they've given them sort of the rope. They've given themselves rope to hang themselves with the Premier League to a certain degree, and I totally get that. And just let's hope, like you say, it gets the line drawn under it. And this was, I mean, for me, I was only 3-4 years old at the time, but there were a lot of people. The Premier League itself was the line in the sand that they didn't want. That was it. Football was dead to them. But now I think this was a real step too far. So hopefully, like you say, legislative level, that it could kick on. But we talked about drawing lines. We'll draw a line under it now. We have to talk about a thing called football. Unfortunately, from my point of view. But I mean, that being said, I'll ask you this, Koben, first. Arsenal. Just that, Arsenal. What have you made of this season so far?
Diabolical, absolutely diabolical from start to finish. I think there have been essentially no green shoots, no positivity, and no reason to trust the process. I think we have been playing much better in build-up. I think we have seen some strong performances from young players like Bukayo Saka, Emile Smith-Rowe. I think we have seen some very positive performances from players that we didn't necessarily expect them from, like Gabriel. Cedric was better than we expected him to, and has actually put in some decent performances in an Arsenal shirt, even though he has still overall been an underwhelming signing. But I just think it's just been a diabolical season. There's no positives really to take from it, and I think we really just have to draw a line under the sand, help we get into the Europa League, and if we don't, look at the organisation and something has to change.
I mean, Max, would you agree with that? Do you see any more positives? Or are you just a sort of not negative, but
me and Koben talk after every single game. We're always just moaning to each other. Koben, I can just press play. It's like with Koben, I press play and he'll just go on for about 10 minutes. And we'll just moan about the same things all the time. It's been a dreadful season. Like it's been, like we said last season, when we're talking about Mikel Arteta and Arsenal, and last season we said finishing 10th, that is like absolutely unacceptable and can't happen again. And we've had a worse season, really. It's been so bad. Like the football we've played, like there has been some standout performances, but just so inconsistent a lot of the time. And just so far off where we need to be. And we look at like the Champions League and stuff that's been on midweek, and we're just so far. We think we're nearly there, and we're just so far away. We're not like 1 or 2 players. We're like 6 or 8 players away. Do you know what I mean? We're so far away from where a lot of people still think we are. And I feel like a lot of the fans' expectations has lowered a lot. And even when it comes to watching the football that we do, like we're blaming, we have been a bit shafted by VAR this season, but I feel like we're almost using VAR and like all these external circumstances. Arteta was brilliant with talking about the Super League and things like that. Arteta's been brilliant throughout COVID, and his communication with the press has been incredible. He's such a good communicator, where Unai Emery wasn't. But on the pitch, we've been really poor, and it's as bad an Arsenal side as I can ever remember.
No, sorry.
No, Koben, please go.
No, I was going to say, I also think it's important to note that, like, as an Arsenal fan, this is literally the worst time it's ever been for me in my entire life as an Arsenal fan. I'm getting an appreciation for what it's like to have your season over in January and just be completely adrift in mid-table. I'm getting appreciation for what it's like to be fans of other clubs. Because generally speaking, under Arsene Wenger, we've got a consistency of performance, right? It may not be at the top of the table towards the end of his career, but it was always there or thereabouts. And even then you're getting into January, you might finish 4th by the end of the season, but you may have been 3rd or 2nd before that and dropped off. You may have been much lower than that and finished really strongly, but there was always something to play for. There was always some reason why you were going into the rest of the season, caring about what happened, caring about results, caring about performances. Now, 3-0 victories, I come away from it still feeling relatively apathetic, because I don't think we're going to see that again. And it's not going to build up into a run. So.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a little smile on my face, and I'm not poking the cage or anything, but I just to hear an Arsenal fan say, "I now appreciate what it's like to have your season over in January." It's just like that's still spoilt for me, because for Newcastle nowadays, it's like we get to January and we're still looking over our shoulders at the bottom three. So, you know, I appreciate it because it's, you know, oh, how the mighty have fallen and all that. And it's sort of, you know, it's I wouldn't say careful what you wish for, the whole Wenger thing. But, I mean, he was going to move on anyway, right? He wasn't, you know, he hasn't had a job since then. I don't really want to talk about Arsene Wenger too much, but everyone thought, well, when you're playing a risky game, taking away his consistency, and it seems to have, you know, that warrants have bore fruit.
Well, me and Koben speak about it all the time. Like the summer that Arsene Wenger left was the most important summer transfer wise that we've had. And then when we invest, you know, huge money into the likes of Granit Xhaka, Shkodran Mustafi, and like the returns that they've given to the club, both, well, you know, obviously Mustafi leaving for nothing and like disaster performance after disaster performance, it's just never really picked up from there. Like from you know, Wenger leaving, we had a real platform to push on and invest right, and we just didn't do that. And it's really, really evident now, and we're still suffering from a lot of that.
Without going over, you know, ground we've already walked over, and I'm not trying to twist the knife or anything, but like Koben, Arteta. So at the time, I thought it was a great appointment. I still feel, and this is probably like someone talking about Newcastle from the outside to me, so please cut me off if I'm talking shite. But like, to me, I feel like I can see what he's trying to do, but it's just so it's the patience perhaps isn't there anymore. Do you still think he's the man to take you forward, or are you done with the Arteta project now?
Well, I think the Arsenal job's a very specific kind of job, right? So if you're at the bottom of the league, you hire Big Sam. He's very good at that. But if you're at the top of the league, you hire him, and he's probably going to be a disaster. If you're at the top of the league, you hire Guardiola. If you're at the bottom of the league and he's trying to get, you know, Grant Holt to play a false nine, it's not going to work, right? So you have to hire the right man for the right job. And I think Arteta coming into his first job as someone who, by all accounts, is a great man manager, has been called out as someone who was great at taking top players and increasing their ability and finding little inconsistencies in their game and making them consistent. I think Arteta is the man for that job. I think if we were an 8 out of 10 team and needed to be made into 10 out of 10, I think Arteta would be the good guy. I think if Guardiola left and Arteta took over from Guardiola, he could get very strong and very consistent performances out of those players because there's already a structure there you can play with. The problem that I have with Arteta, and I think the issue that I have with Arteta, is that he's not able to get the best out of the specific set of players that we have. And I feel like you say, even as an external fan who doesn't watch every single game, every time you watch the team, they've got an identity. You can see what they're trying to do. You can see what the build-up is. You can see the shapes and the triangles. You can see them trying to attack the half space on the outside. You can see us, you know, with more centrality now towards the end of the season when we've been a bit better. It does look quite good. But the issue is, you know, we have a squad where you've got people like Pepe, you've got people like Aubameyang, you've got people like Martinelli, and to an extent people like Saka, who are very direct runners, you know, who are very, very set up for a specific kind of game that I don't think Arteta's playing. I think this positional, rotational play game just doesn't have the players in his squad. And I don't think he's maximizing the talent of the players that he does have. So even though I think the system does make sense, I can see what he's trying to do. The consistency of execution and consistency of delivery is just not there because the players don't have the capabilities to consistently actually execute that game plan. And so you're always going to end up with a great analysis from the outside saying, that was a great plan. I can see what you're trying to do. These moments it worked. But because of the inconsistency of the players, you're not going to actually get the best kind of performance. So you need to kind of have a bit more of the Arsene Wenger about you and go, okay, well, we're just better than these lads. Just go out there and batter them. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to give you too much to talk about. I'm not going to give you too much to think about. I'm not going to give you too many different roles. Just go out there. You're better than them. Like, you know, if you've got a St. Maximan, sometimes you're going to have, 15 minutes. You've been under the cosh. You're just going to tell him, look at that fullback. He's cooked. Run at him. Just go out there and just hurt him. I don't care how you do it. I'm not going to tell you to go inside or outside. I'm not going to tell you to drop off or go beyond. I'm going to go, you're better than him and he's tired. Just go out there and batter him, hurt him, and we'll score. And I don't think Arteta's got enough of that devil, enough of that, go out there and just smash guys, go out there and, show that emotion, play with the handbrake off, as Arsene Wenger used to say. And sometimes, when you do have a top team with top players, you do just have to go out there and batter someone and just accept that it's not going to look pretty. You're going to go out there and concede goals, but you've got Aubameyang, you've got Pepe, you've got Martinelli, you've got Saka, you've got so many options. So you know, that's kind of my analysis. So you're just not maximising the team that we have.
He's a great talker, isn't he?
Well, no, everything you said there was so eloquently put. I just got lost in your vocabulary, but
That's
it was
what I do. That's when I speak to
very,
him.
very great. I know exactly what you mean, because it's sort of, you've just epitomised everything I think about Arsenal in like 2 minutes, because you are right in terms of them having an identity, and they have got the quality of player to batter teams like Fulham. Not to bring that game up, but, you know, I was watching that with a vested interest being a Newcastle supporter. And you're thinking, what's going on here? Like, how haven't they brought them down yet? There was chances you didn't take them. And I know exactly what you're talking about, just as with that game as an isolated example.
Yeah, but it's a perfect example.
Koben just said, Max, earlier, there was no green shoots. There's no, you know, he's disastrous season and all that. Two things. It's a two-part question, this, and it's quite varied, really. The youth coming through at Arsenal, it's always been a thing. Like, it's always been, you know, you've always brought through decent players. Bukayo Saka is an absolutely fantastic player.
Yeah.
Outside looking, I think he's great. Emile Smith-Rowe looks like he's got something. How far can them two take it? I know Saka's probably a level above, but where do you see those two going? Do you reckon they're going to be there for a long time to come?
I think with regards to Saka, he will be with us as long as we match his ambitions, and I do really think he can play. I do think he could go and play for like a Bayern in like a few years.
Yeah,
he carries on, because I do think he really is top class. Like, there's been so many times we've been called upon this season, and he's been excellent. And you know, he's only getting better. You forget how young he is as well. What is he? Is he 19 or is he 20?
19, I think. Is he 19? I think he's 19. I remember when I heard it, I was shocked that he was in his teens still.
Yeah,
I might be wrong.
And he's like, you forget how young he is, and you know, if he's going to be, I'd say, like when he's 22 and he's still putting in his performances, and if we're still sitting round about where we are, I think it would make sense for him to move on. I wouldn't hold it against him. You know, he could easily go and like fill like a Alphonso Davies role if he's still putting in, like, adding 10% to his performances each season like he is now. With regards to Emile Smith-Rowe, me and Koben spoke about this one. It's a bit of a tricky one with what happened to him. He was kind of thrust into the team when we realised that we didn't really have many other options.
He went on loan to Huddersfield, didn't he?
He was on loan to Huddersfield last year. He did really well. He had a bit of a long injury before that, which kind of kept him out of the team. And his physicality has always been an issue. Like, you have like a Phil Foden that's come through at Man City, was really able to like bide his time and play like 1 or 2 games here and there and really up the experience. We've just had to, like, I worry with Emile Smith-Rowe because we really just flog him a lot of the time. Like, he's going to be playing like 40 games a season next season. So I do hope his development can pick up as well. But from a lot of what I see of him, you know, that Slavia Prague game a couple of weeks ago, he was absolutely electric, like in that 10 role. So I do think the ceiling is high for him. But yeah, you just have to think where he could go, really. I think it'd be a good player for us. He
looks a good player. I mean, I remember him coming on and changing the game when he got sent off in the FA Cup against Newcastle, but and they ended up winning the game. But obviously that wasn't. But you know,
that's one time VAR's done us a favour.
Yeah. But talking about Arsenal youth, the last thing I'll say about Arsenal youth, and it's about a man who has my heart at the moment, and it's Mr. Joe Willock. I was surprised when we signed him because I knew he played like Europa League games for you. I know he wasn't getting his game and he was going to struggle to get into the starting 11s, hence him coming on loan. And he's not playing every game. He's coming off the bench and scoring very important goals. But just give us and our supporters a sort of insight of how you see him. It's a stupid question because you can't have him back. I don't think it's fair if you take him back. But would you have him back? Would you want him to start breaking the side? Or if the right price came along, would you let him go? I'll ask you that, Koben. Sorry, mate.
Sorry, Koben, go
on. Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think Joe Willock offers something that we definitely need in our squad. But I also think that if the right price came in, we could definitely go again because we have loads and loads of holes in our squad. Right. So it's just a case of prioritizing and in case of, you know, our overall squad building goals for the summer. I think Joe Willock as a player you'd be surprised to learn he played, basically 40 games for us last season in dribs and drabs across different sub appearances of different competitions. So he's an important player. He was coming on the right wing. He was coming on in the central midfield. He played 10. We even played him up front a couple of times because he's got the physicality. He's got the willingness to run. The kind of rough parts of his game, and probably the reason why he's not playing all the games for you is, his consistency of passing, his consistency of passing selection isn't great, but he's always willing to learn. He's always willing to put in the defensive effort. He's always willing to run and beyond. Yeah. So he's been compared to Aaron Ramsey a lot. He's been compared to a kind of young Aaron Ramsey who hasn't quite got his shooting boots on yet, but he seems to be picking up those goals at Newcastle, right?
Oh, man, such important goals.
Aaron Ramsey kind of, again, had that kind of game that a lot of the kind of purists who, loved your Fabregases and loved your silky smooth midfielders didn't like Aaron Ramsey's game because it was a bit bombastic. It was a bit, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. It's a bit scrappy. But in broken play, he was, he was dynamite. And just like that, Joe Willock, again, in broken play, he's dynamite. When the ball falls, when people are out of shape, when people are out of position, he's there, right? That's his main virtue. And so I think we need that in this Arsenal team. But I also don't think Arteta's going to want a low touch midfielder like Willock. I think he averages maybe, 25, 30 passes a game. He's had games for an Arsenal where, in 90 minutes, he's playing central midfield. He's got less than 30 passes. I don't think Arteta's ever going to kind of tolerate that kind of low pass turnover in a game, even if you are getting on the end of chances and getting on the end of headers and putting in balls from broken play. So I think, if he can start playing full 90s for Newcastle, if he can start, doing kind of some of the stuff that you lot asked John Joe to do, while also continuing to do what he does. Well, I mean, that's one question that I came on here wanting to ask you, right?
Yeah, please do.
I literally cannot tolerate watching John Joe Shelby for 90 minutes because he jumps off the screen as just not good enough. And I used to love John Joe, right? I used to love him because, he can ping a ball. And I always thought he was one of those underappreciated players. He's kind of a bit of a cult player, right?
Yeah,
you could see the technical quality if you actually watched him. But, you just felt like he wasn't getting the opportunities. Now, when I watch him, he jumps off the screen. It's like the way that people used to talk about Tanga and Dombe at the beginning of the season. I can't believe he's letting people walk past him. I can't believe he's showing no desire. His feet aren't moving at all. What's going on? You zoom in on his face. He doesn't even look bothered. I don't understand what's going on and how he actually gets into the team.
Well, you've basically, again, epitomised everything that Newcastle fans are feeling, most anyway, because it's a strange one, and I won't go on a bit of a rant, but I'm not good at football. I've played 3 or 5 Sunday League games, and my best friends will tell you I couldn't hit a cow's ass with a shovel. But don't know why they put me up front. But I was surrounded by some football players who would watch my team from the outside, watch Newcastle play from the outside in the pub or whatever, and they'd be like, John Joe Shelby, one of the best passers of a ball in the Premier League. And I'm like, used to be, maybe, probably not. But, they put this sort of weird hipster view on John Joe Shelby as he's the only footballer at Newcastle. And I used to just tell them they were wrong. You're wrong. You're wrong. Because I watch him every week and I know what he can do. I know what his ability is with his right foot and diagonals. And sometimes that still is of use in our team. However, when you're fighting at the bottom of the league, he will tell you that he does all the running, that his stats show that he does a lot of running. And I'm not saying it's abysmal, but it still seems so lackadaisical, lethargic. And the way sort of Liverpool, we played Liverpool at Anfield the other week, and big result. But he played a 40-yard volley on the spin without looking to his goalkeeper and put him in heaps of trouble under Sadio Mane's pressure. And you're thinking, what in God's name were you thinking there? You're playing for Newcastle United. Dubravka's a good keeper. Dubravka probably shouldn't let the ball bounce, but don't play that ball, man. And I think he just saunters around thinking he's better than he is, and that's the problem. I think he's got this arrogant streak about him. I think he thinks he's better than he is. He could have a massive effect behind the scenes. I'm not sure, but Steve Bruce seems to like him. I mean, I'm not saying that gives you much credence, but, in his opinions, but it's a strange one. But for me, like you've just said, with John Joe Shelby in our team, the midfield is so easily bypassed, but he is one of the only options these days. And I guess it's purely before his passing that he's in the team, but he just doesn't seem to do it as well as some people think he can. So, there's my answer to that question.
I'll just ask a question as well. What's your thoughts on Steve Bruce's good. Well, Steve and Newcastle's good form of late. Do you put it down to? Do you give Steve Bruce any credit for that? I know there's been a lot of. I'm speaking to Bobby as well. I know there's a lot of a lot of bad energy towards Steve. Just have to mention it to Body and he'll explode. So
yeah, I mean, look, yes, I'm not a fan of Steve Bruce. I'm sure he's a great person. Like I get told off everyone on the television. I'm sure he is. But as a football manager, I don't know how he's got a job in the Premier League again. But the last 4 games, do I want to give him some credit? Not really. But I guess he's in charge of the players, so you have to give him some semblance. But I have my tinfoil hat theory. I've said it on videos in the past that Brighton game when we went to the Amex in a huge game and the players just did not show up. They didn't give a shit. Again, I'm not saying that's good on the players, but I felt like they thought if we get smashed here, he's gone. Get someone else in. Nice one. We'll kick on. And when they realised that Steve Bruce didn't get sacked, I think they thought, shit, he's unsackable this season. Like, so we best roll with socks up. We best do something. And, you know, Matt Ritchie's came back into the team. That's a decision Steve Bruce has taken. So you have to give him credit for that. But Matt Ritchie seems to have galvanised the team, being the manager on the pitch. I'm not putting it all down to Matt Ritchie. And I feel like we've had slices of luck. The Liverpool game, essentially, you know, as much as we had that goal ruled out, we should have been 5 or 6-0 down. But we didn't. We fought. We've equalised. Brilliant. I just hope we can keep cracking on. But again, what worries me is this little run of form. You know, Mr. Ashley's probably seeing it and going, well, he's doing a cracking job. Like, we'll just next season, we'll just give him that. And, you know, jobs are good. And it's just Newcastle's just a fucking circus.
You don't need any more transfers. Look how well you're playing.
Yeah. you want Joe Willock? Will they take it in Sports Direct mugs? Some Diodora shin pads.
How much would you pay for Joe Willock?
Well, I've had 20 million being mooted. To me, no one's worth 20 million hardly ever because we paid 15 million for Alan Shearer in 1996. But, you know, the world's different. When your Joe Lintons are going for 40 million, Jesus Christ. I think 20 million, I mean, it's worth it, I guess.
Would you pay 30? No. I feel like we Arsenal particularly, and you look at Liverpool and like Rhian Brewster and how he went for 20 million despite never playing a game for them. I always think back to the Brad Smith and Jordan Ibe, both of them. I think Jordan Ibe, Brad Smith, Jordan Ibe, and Dominic Solanke, didn't they? All of them went for big money, like 15, 20 million, all of them.
Solanke's only just started scoring now and in the Championship.
Yeah, literally. So I'm always when I'm looking at Joe Willock, and as Koben says, I think he played 44 games for us last year. Yeah. Like and when now he's scoring goals, I'm thinking, oh, surely that's an extra 2 million on his price tag or whatever. But we'll have to see.
Newcastle fans, I know, supporters as well. I'll always remember the season when Rafa he had pennies to spend in a January where it looked like we might be going back down from coming straight back up. And he gets Martin Dubravka in for next to nothing, and he gets Kennedy in on loan from Chelsea. And Kennedy galvanised that team.
It was good, wasn't it?
He was amazing. I remember a brace he scored against Southampton. He was absolutely fantastic. He goes back to Chelsea. They're mooting £30 million to sign him. We're thinking, Pate, just get him back in. We get him on loan for the next season. And I think we signed his brother because literally it was literally flip side the coin. He was shocking. And it's just, that's how football goes. Sometimes you can get. We could sign Willock next season, and he could be terrible. I'm not saying he will be. I'm just saying that's the chance you take. Sometimes a player has that hunger about them, goes out on loan, really wants to impress, and then I mean, we did get Kennedy on loan again, but you know, we could sign him, and he could just be like just saunter around. I don't think that's what the lad's about. But anyway, I digress. But sorry, mate.
That's what I say. It's interesting how he's just got so many goals from the bench.
And it's because he does the thing that Koben's just said about Shelvey. Trying to do things that Shelvey does. Well, he does one thing Shelvey doesn't do, and that's get in the box. Break from midfield, sit on the edge of the box, cut back. His first goal was a St. Maximin cut back, and he smacked it in the bottom corner against Southampton. And every other time he gets in the box, gets at the back post, and that's what one thing we've never had a midfielder do, and that's really.
We need goals from midfield as well. So.
Well, you're not going to get them from Joe Willock. Anyway, We've got a game on Sunday. And before we go to that game on Sunday, I do ask this question. We'll keep it brief. I know probably what the answers are going to be, but do you have any specific memories about this game at St James's Park, you two? Anything that sticks in your head? I've got a smile on my face already.
Being a certain 4-0 up. And it's such a fond memory for Newcastle fans, and
it's amazing.
It just makes me die, really. But yeah, I remember as well Joey Barton being such a knobhead in that game, and
Joey Barton being a knobhead. What are you on about?
Like, remember him scoring a pen, and then Chesney trying to jump on it to try and save a couple of minutes, and then
it was actually Kevin Nolan
shoving him to the deck, and I just thought, oh, it's not going to be our day when that's happening. So
he should have been sent off for that. For what Diaby got sent off for, which was grabbing Joey Barton by the scruff of the neck and throwing him on the floor. Kevin Nolan walks over to Chesney and gets him in a headlock and throws him on the floor to get the ball like a kid in a playground. And I just thought, shit. You'll also see in that game that Joey Barton takes one of the worst penalties you've ever seen in your life. Tries to be clever on his second penalty, takes a one-step run up, puts it straight down the middle, and Chesney kicks it into the roof of the net. But you know, who am I to say Joey Barton's arrogant? Because a lot of people like that man.
But yeah, good memory for you boys. That what a goal it was as well. And,
yeah, God rest his soul.
God rest his soul, indeed. Yeah.
Koben, do you have any other memories of any of the games at St James's Park?
My enduring memory is Bergkamp.
What, that fluke? What, that bit where he went to control it and miskicked it? Oh
yeah. Goal of the season.
No blasphemy on this pod, please.
Goal of the season. I mean, needs no real further description because everyone knows the goal that we're talking about. And you know, it's such an enduring memory for me because number one, it's one of the first goals that I really remember sticking out to me as a completely unique individual piece of skill that I'd never really seen before.
Yeah, he was like a ballerina on ice when he was like a figure skater. And
then also because of the sheer volume of attempts that I made to do that on an actual football pitch. Sometimes successfully, but very rarely as successfully. And you know, yeah, even the ones that were successful, I imagine, didn't look as pretty from the sideline.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly. But I mean, I have one other one as well, and it's not a positive one. I'll always remember it was around about 2004. We got beat 1-0 just after Christmas, and Patrick Vieira scored a very tasty goal. He smacked one from about 25 yards into sort of the side netting. I'll always remember that goal. But yeah, the long-living memories, that 4-4. I mean, we did come back from behind under Rafa Benitez as well in a really important time in our season. Went 1-0 down, and it was Lacazette, and we ended up winning 2-1. That was a big game for us. But we move on to Sunday, unfortunately, and we'll briefly just have a little preview of this. You've been mentioning all this podcast. Sorry, you've been saying about how, you know, Arsenal need to back the teams. Arsenal need to know they're better than some teams. I've watched Arsenal this season and think they're nothing to be scared of. As much as they've got good players, they're nothing to be scared of, and that's probably symptomatic of what Koben said about the way they're playing football. So it's happened a few times where I've thought, Arsenal are coming to town today, we'll beat them. Or we're going to Arsenal, we can give them a go. Never happens. And we sort of roll over the Emirates this season being the symptomatic of that. 3-0, just sort of rolled over in the second half. How do you guys see this going? I mean, are you confident? I mean, I know Newcastle in a good run of form, but he's got a pretty good recent record against us. What do you think? I'll go with you, Max.
I know I genuinely have not. I know I'm even doing this podcast, but I genuinely have not even I'm not really asked about it. We're so the season's so done for us. So I just within the Premier League this season, we've hit so many lows. Me and Koben have spoke about the teams that have done the double over us, the likes of Burnley, etc.
We did the double over Burnley.
Well, yeah. No, we got a point against Burnley. Sorry, Burnley beat us at home for the first time since 1970, whatever. But, no, ahead of this game, I do fancy us in the sense that we've beat you a couple of times in the league. We've got an all right record there. I think but I don't. I'm just not confident with us in the Premier League. Like,
yeah,
and I don't. There's just no momentum going into this game because everything's just on the Europa League at the moment. Like tonight, I'd say but this will be out when we might have won or lost tonight. Everything's on the Europa League, so there's going to be a lot of rotation going into that game. You could have all sorts playing anywhere. You could have Xhaka at left back, and ASM could tear him a new one. So I'm really not sure. I will go with 1-1.
You've got players coming back though. I mean, like you've just said at the time of recording, and I appreciate the time he's given us because you've got a game coming in an hour or so, big game in the semi-final of the Europa League.
Who cares?
Well, I'll tell you what, Koben, again, sir, your intuition is absolutely impeccable because I was about to ask you what you think the score was going to be, but I also was going to put a little side note on that and go, if you've won the Europa League, would you see it as a successful season?
No.
I mean, just briefly on the kind of Arsenal Newcastle game. Despite how terrible we are, I just assume that we're going to win. And the reason why is just because we talked about the 4-4 earlier, and around about that time, Newcastle actually did well. Like after that game, I think the next two games you got draws off us. The kind of confidence from the 4-4 gave you.
That season we'd beat you 1-0 at the Emirates as well. First time we'd won away at Arsenal in a long time. Andy Carroll. So we did all right.
It was a good period. But then since after that, we then beat you 10 times in a row. Lost once and then have won the next 6 times. So generally speaking, our form has vacillated. We've been on good form, bad form, beginning of the season, end of the season. It hasn't really made a difference. We normally still get a result.
This is what I was saying. Every time you look bad, you have to come to town or you come to Newcastle and you get a result.
So it's just one of those. But like Max was alluding to, this is a completely unprecedented season. I mean, the Burnley have done the double over us. We've put in some of the worst performances we've put in. I think in the Premier League era, we haven't had as many goalless games ever as we have this season. So, I mean, our main problem is we might have top players in the attack, but a lot of our games end with expected goals of like 1.1 to 0.8.
Don't get me started on fucking expected goals.
But like I say that to say, we don't create a commensurate amount of chances for the amount of attacking talent we have on the pitch.
Yeah.
So we'll create 3 or 4 chances in a game. Lacazette will miss 2 chances, and people will say he's a bad player. But it's a striker only getting 2 chances in a game.
Yeah.
And as the expected goals, as much as you might not think it's a good metric for considering games,
it's only because we're shit at it, Koben. That's the only reason I don't like it. It's only because I say 0.0 sometimes.
No, but it's just like it's a good metric of shot quality, right? If 100 players took this shot, how many of them would have scored? And oftentimes, Lacazette's getting lambasted for a cumulative 0.1 expected goals, which means it would have taken 1,000 shots for this to be a certainty. So I think coming into the game, I'm confident because of the record. But I'm also perfectly aware that a lot of those games, Arteta wasn't manager. We weren't playing this style. We weren't in a season where we're going to have our worst points total ever, where Aubameyang, who's carried us last season, isn't on form, may not even play because he's injured. Lacazette, who's been our best striker, is coming off an injury himself. Arteta doesn't seem to know how to be able to use his more direct options like Pepe and like Martinelli. And so we might end up with a completely dysfunctional attacking plan. And like Max says, get hit on the break by an ASM. Granit Xhaka gives away a penalty. Anything could happen. Leno just drops the ball into his own net again. Anything could happen.
Very probable.
With Arsenal, David Luiz could come back in, red card sending off, get straight back into the Europa League afterwards. Anything could happen. So I'd say as a Newcastle fan, I'd be confident coming into it. And as an Arsenal fan, I'd be confident coming into it. So hopefully that means it's going to be a good game, but it's probably going to be 0-0.
But you're going 0-0, are you?
Yeah, I'm going 0-0.
So Max,
so you're safe now, aren't you? Pretty much.
Don't say that to me, please. I am probably one of the most pessimistic Newcastle supporters out there. I appreciate we're in a very strong position. There's a lot of teams in it right now. we've got we've got 3 hard fixtures coming up. We've got Arsenal, Leicester, and Manchester City. Now, I think if we can pick up 1 point out of them, possibly. It's all to do with, again, and I hate it, watching other teams play football and hoping they get beat. You know, it's awful, but I'll just be watching West Brom and Fulham games with a vested interest till the end of the season, and hope that, you know, we can pick up 1 point, and hopefully by the end of the season when we're playing Fulham away, nothing counts for that game. Because if it does, I don't think my heart could take it. I think I'll end up in the hospital. But we'll see. Hopefully, yes, we are safe. Fingers crossed, touch wood, and all that stuff. But we'll see. I'd like to still get a point off you guys. I would like to think I could go with Max, say maybe 1-1, maybe 2-2, something similar to what we saw against Spurs, where maybe we take the lead, throw it away, but then I don't have Mr. Willock to come off the bench and score the goals. So
if there was ever a year to give you a point, it'd be this year.
Yeah, well, you beat us 2-0 and 3-0 already this season, including the cup. So I'm not 100% confident. But if maybe you have some square pegs and round holes, and Alan St. Maximin can, you know, get up and not get kicked to the ground and stay down all the time and really have a good goal, then you never know. Start Callum Wilson. You know, he having that centre forward like Callum Wilson, who actually plays like a centre forward, it's so important.
He's a great player as well.
He's a great player. He's just injury prone. Yeah, I mean, I wince every time he sprints because of his hamstrings. They're apparently made of Greg's pasties. I don't know. It scares me a little bit, but we'll see. But 1-1 Max, 0-0. 0 you, mate, and I'm gonna go 1-1 again. I'm gonna go 1-1. So I think we're all. Well, no, let's go 2-2. I think it's gonna be a good game. So we're going in ascending order, 1-1.
If Bruce gets 2 points out of the next 3 games, stays up, does he deserve a new 5-year deal and a pay rise?
8 year.
No.
8 year.
Okay, if you got rid of Bruce, have you got someone in the picture for who you'd like next?
Koben, you can be Newcastle manager and do better. You can do better. The team talks you would give, mate. Bloody hell. No, honestly, I mean, I could talk to them blue in the face about the ineptitude of Steve Bruce. Again, nice guy, but I just feel that, you know, he is so far behind the times. He's in the same school of thought of your Sam Allardyces and your Alan Pardew's and all that, because I just feel like they won't grow with the times. They don't care about, you know, tactics and all that stuff. But I mean, the list is so long about Steve Bruce, and he came into this club not as anyone's first choice, but you could sort of see the nice guy mantra coming through. Ever since he mentioned Rafa Benitez in a press conference, the mighty Rafa, who have got just as many points as the mighty Rafa, he's just been onto a losing streak since then. He said some stupid shit. He said some really stupid stuff. The excuses, the talking over reporters when they try to get a good answer out of him about our poor form. He's just not carried himself very well. At the end of the day, like it was good to see him all the players hugging him at the end of the Liverpool game because we've got a point. I'm happy about that. But
he looked delighted by that. I think his good lady had confirmed the Sunday dinner.
Yeah, the apple crumble for dessert. Bacon sandwiches in the morning.
Yeah, no, we've got our group chat name is How's the Bacon?
Damn it, it's classic. Tells you a lot about his tenure when that's probably the biggest. Sort of, you know, if he ever has a statue made, which he won't, he should have like just be Steve Bruce. Should be on his headstone. I'm not wishing the guy dead, by the way. I'm just saying, you know, how's the bacon? Did you say Steve Bruce? Yeah. But lads, it's been an absolute pleasure. I meant to keep you for only 20-25 minutes. We've talked forever. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope the predictions are right. I hope we get a point, maybe a bit more. Fingers crossed. You never know. But, lads, best of luck in the Europa League tonight. People watching, probably you know the result already. I would say best of luck at the weekend, but I would be completely lying to you. But, Max, thank you very much, mate.
Thank you very much, mate. Enjoyed it. It was good.
Yeah, Koben, thank you very much. Take care of yourself.
Thanks. To
everyone watching, thank you for watching another Beyond the Lines. If you haven't subscribed to the Gallowgateshots YouTube channel already, what are you doing? Subscribe, become a member. You get more stuff. It's great. Also, like the video, share the video as well, and leave a comment down below as well. Cheers, Max. Cheers, everyone. Take care.